The NFL draft is officially over. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you watched the YouTube stream, if you watched any of the multiple streams on Twitch, just got done with an over 7.5 hour stream. So that was quite wild on day 3. It always kind of drags on a little bit. And of course, it's tough to know every player, dude, because especially in this draft, there were so many guys who were COVID year layover guys that it was such a deep class. You really didn't know who was going to get drafted and where and how many players could have snuck in. And already you can see so many undrafted free agent rookies have already gone to teams. I mean, look at the Colts, for example. They've got, double-digit players already linked to them and signed with them, I suppose. You'll have to see if they end up making the team. But what I've done in this video is gone ahead and put some of my favorite into a list. And of course, it's an inexact science. Some of these guys dropped for injury concerns, like Carson Strong, who have some medical red flags, we'll say. Some of the guys just got pushed out with more talent going in. It was such a deep class. Not everyone could get drafted. That's just kind of the nature of the game. And hopefully we'll see some of these guys end up being really good pros. But yeah, it's an uphill battle. We'll start out with quarterback, and that's Carson Strong. He was one of the better QBs in the draft, although it was not a great quarterback draft. The thing with Carson Strong is there are huge medical red flags, really with his knee more than anything else. He was a statue in the pocket at Nevada because of major knee concerns. And I believe he had to have surgery at one point. It was just not a good situation for him. And I guess teams didn't feel comfortable taking him at any point in the draft. And for that reason, he went undrafted and I believe signed with the Eagles. So he is on Philadelphia now. Also, Cole Kelly. Cole Kelly's a big arm out of southeastern Louisiana. He was recruited to Arkansas and is not signed with the team currently, as I see this. Recruited to Arkansas, ended up transferring to southeastern Louisiana. It's a big dude. 6'7", 250, 260 pounds out of southeastern Louisiana. He is a developmental guy who has what you'd look for in terms of massive size and a big arm. That's Cole Kelly. Now, a lot of the time, those guys just don't end up working out. It's very rare to see a true huge QB, 6'6", 6'7", that's actually productive and effective in the NFL. It's very rare. We've seen Brock Osweiler be good for a minute, but that's kind of it. Josh Allen's a big dude, but he's not 6'7", right? So it's rare to see a guy like him be successful, especially at 250 plus pounds. But he is a big arm and does have some great size. So we'll have to see if a team takes a chance on him and if he ends up playing at all in preseason. Jack Cohn out of Notre Dame, playing at a prestigious program, was decent for Notre Dame. I didn't really view him as a draftable prospect, but I thought he was someone that would end up getting drafted. Turns out, I guess teams were on the same board with me and ended up not taking him. And then E.J. Perry out of Brown. Just because of the Brown alma mater, you think this guy's a smart guy, Ivy League, and he ends up not getting drafted. And I'm not saying it's a one-for-one comparison with Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? But Ivy League guy, these are guys you think can probably stick around, but Perry is not there. And the other quarterback, Jack Cohn, is with the Colts. So that's interesting. So there's another one of those quarterbacks. Yeah, it's just with these guys, I thought a team would take a chance on him, at least to be a backup quarterback. But nope, the Dolphins went with Skylar Thompson instead of any of these QBs available. And the quarterback out of, South Dakota State, Chris Oladokun, ends up going as well. And he's an upside guy, and that's kind of what you want more than some of these guys that are just going to be backups. You want someone that you might be able to develop a little bit. But yeah, I was surprised that Carson Strong was undrafted. For the running backs, I like the running back class. I think there were some really good backs that went undrafted. My favorite of the bunch is Zaquandre White. I just think he has the prototypical size that you look for at running back. He's a big dude and he plays so strong. I don't want to say searches for contact, but he is a bruiser when he makes contact and he's explosive as well. I think it's just about getting more play time, but he was fairly effective in the SEC at South Carolina. I really thought he would get drafted. I thought he and Kevin Harris would get drafted. Harris did end up going to New England, I believe in the 6th round, but Zaquandre White was unsigned. He ended up going to the Miami Dolphins, where I think he can really make a push to make that roster. Oregon got Verone McKinley as well, who we'll get to in a little bit. Abram Smith out of Baylor ends up going undrafted. The other Baylor back, who's more of a kick returner, got drafted, whereas Abram Smith, the actual running back, didn't get drafted, which was a surprise to me. FIU's Devontae Price went undrafted. He's a big dude, 6'1", 210. I thought he was going to find some place in the league. Went undrafted, but he has already been signed as well, and he is with the Colts. And then Bam Knight. I really thought he was going to get drafted as well. But as I said, not everybody can get drafted, and Bam Knight, Zonovan Knight, was just one of those guys who ended up falling. He has signed to the New York Jets already. So many guys signed, only a few are unsigned. And I want to talk about Justin Ross for a second, because it's not a real surprise he went undrafted. This is a guy who was dominant at Clemson as a freshman, as dominant as a freshman can be, 6'3", almost 6'4", 200-plus pounds. Here's the problem. Justin Ross has had some really, really significant injuries, and when you're talking about a back and a neck like you are with Justin Ross in terms of being your real weak point, and he's got a spinal condition, you're really going to be worried about drafting a guy like that, even though we know the upside with Justin Ross because we've seen it before. The big thing is just, is he ever going to become the player we thought he could be? And the answer is probably, unfortunately, not. That ceiling has been lowered. But could he become an effective player in the NFL? I think there's a chance that happens. He tested really, really poorly, but I don't know how much of that is just his body not being at 100%. After the spinal condition, I'm not sure if he can ever get back to being this elite type athlete. And that's really, really unfortunate. But we've seen the player be good. I think there's a chance he can become a player that makes an NFL team. Reggie Roberson at SMU, I mean, this was a pretty deep receiver class. I thought he was going to get drafted as well. We could say that about so many of these guys. I really thought Kevin Austin would get drafted. I thought Tanner Connor would sneak in. He's a really, really crisp route runner. Had a good day at the East-West Shrine game and the practices leading up to it. Emeka Emezi, it's not really shocking he didn't get drafted. He's just slow, but he's someone with pretty good hands that I think could end up finding a spot on an NFL practice squad to NFL team at some point. And Mekhi Polk, we didn't really touch on, but he is a big dude and has a lot of experience catching the football, playing in that Mississippi State air raid offense. And I think you could end up finding a pretty good undrafted free agent at some point with these receivers. I mean, you have the athletes with Kevin Austin and the potential of Justin Ross, a once elite-looking prospect that obviously has had such a fall from grace. Tanner Connor, like the classic undrafted guy who's just a good route runner from the super small school, Idaho State. But there's something to like there. At tight end, I had to talk about Jalen Weidermeyer. I was not particularly high on him, and he tested really, really, really poorly. And the combination of having bad hands and testing awfully obviously scared teams a lot. There might be more to it as well, but there is some upside here. He's got prototypical size, 6'4", 6'5", 250 plus, and has shown the ability to be a decent route runner. I think he plays faster than his awful 40 time. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him make a team, and he has already been signed as well. Weidermeyer is with the Bills, who don't really have a lot of depth at tight end. Got Dawson Knox, signed O.J. Howard, but after that, I think it's kind of wide open, and you see a lot of teams carry 3 to 4 tight ends at times, so I think there's a chance for him. And then Garrett Prince at a UAB. This is a converted receiver, and at 6'4.5", like 6'5", 240 pounds, it is a big, big dude. And he looks like a receiver when you watch him. The problem with Garrett Prince is just going to be, will he ever be an effective run blocker? And to be an NFL caliber run blocker, that's going to be a tough battle for Garrett Prince. It really will be. I'm not quite sure he's big enough at only 240 pounds at his height. It's going to be tough to get down and get lower and block for a big guy like that, especially when he's not used to being able to do it. But the receiving upside is there, so I think he has upside in the right offense. But it's going to be interesting because in order to be an NFL tight end, you have to be able to block. And that's just kind of an unknown with him right now. Keep in mind, there are also going to be some undrafted free agents that I haven't gotten a chance to watch yet. I've watched a lot of guys, hundreds of prospects. I haven't been able to get to all of them. There are about 400 or 500 guys that are going to end up being on a team in this window after the draft. There really could be 400 guys that end up on teams. And it was tough to watch everybody. So I did a little over 200, but that's still not even as many guys that get drafted. But Kellen Diesch was someone I thought was going to get drafted. He's big, he's lean, he's 6'7", a little over 300 pounds. I know it says 299 there, but I think he's closer to like 305. And I really thought he was going to get drafted. We'll talk about another Arizona State offensive lineman in a bit. Kind of a shock to me that he wasn't at least a 7th-round pick. I think he was a combine guy, and the Dolphins have already scooped him up. Obinna Easy, this is another dude who's just huge. 6'6", 330 pounds, and he was someone who has a lot of experience starting at TCU, and I think he's someone that could also end up sliding inside as well. Seems like at this point, he is not on a team. Have to see how that progresses over the next couple of days and weeks. DeRay Rosenthal out of Kentucky. This is another dude who's huge. 6'7", 327 pounds listed as. And he has great upside at the back end of the draft and ends up sliding out of the draft. I thought he was going to get drafted as well, but that seems to be the trend here. And he has not been signed to a team yet either. And then Tyler Vrabel. This is Mike Vrabel's son out of BC. I think there's a chance he ends up going to the Titans as an undrafted free agent. I think that'd be a really good fit. Why not? They could use help on the offensive line. And it's not just that he's Mike Vrabel's son, give him a chance. It's like, this is a pretty good player. And I guess it's not a huge shock that he didn't get drafted, but he was highly regarded at one point. Ends up going to the Falcons, actually. And I think he can compete to make a roster. I really do. I feel pretty good about Tyler Vrabel in terms of the undrafted guys. On the interior of the offensive line, Donovan West is a junior, might be a redshirt junior, but is one of the younger offensive linemen that you were going to find on day 3, and someone who can end up playing center for you. No team wanted him. Alec Lindstrom's a center. No team wanted him. Ben Brown has guard to center flexibility. Pretty big dude. Right guard for Ole Miss, but I think could end up being a center. And just none of these guys drafted, and just a big surprise. Isaiah Weston, too, is in this range. I didn't talk about him as a receiver. Great upside, amazing athlete coming out of Northern Iowa. He could end up making an impact as a gunner right away on a team. Where's Donovan Weston here? Do we not have him? Don't think so. To the other side of the ball now. We'll start with Noah Ellis from Idaho. This was a guy getting big-time offers out of high school. 6'4", 360 pounds. He is massive. He's a space eater on the defensive line. And the only reason he ends up going to Idaho is because his dad, I believe, is the defensive line coach there. So this was a guy who was pretty highly recruited coming out of high school that ends up going to a smaller program to be by family and play for his dad. This is a pretty decent player. He's a nose tackle. He's a space eater. But there is a role for that, and I think that a team will end up valuing him. Kind of the same deal with Marquand McCall. I mean, he is huge. Nose tackle, 6'3", 380. He is a space eater. He is a guy at the line of scrimmage that you are not going to be able to move because he's 380 pounds. So when he can eat up multiple blocks and not allow offensive linemen to combo and get up to the next level to take on the linebackers, that is valuable in an NFL defense. The nose tackle is still valuable, and it seems like defenses are shifting back to where the nose tackle is becoming a little bit more valuable. So I think Marquand McCall, as an undrafted rookie free agent, could end up making a team to be a nose tackle, which is really just a goal line guy, maybe right away. Ends up maybe best case scenario being a starting nose, but that's unlikely as he's undrafted. And then Haskell Garrett was kind of a great story. This is someone that was shot in the face and ends up coming back, playing for Ohio State, making some big-time plays. He's a one-gap style player, and there is a role for that in the NFL. I mean, we saw a one-gapper, Kalia Davis, go on day 3 out of UCF to the Niners. I think Garrett can play a similar type of role, even if Davis is more of an athlete. I thought Garrett was someone that was probably in that same range, ends up going undrafted, but similar style of player, in my opinion. Now, I had a couple of edge rushers that I liked. Only 2 of them are listed here. I have David Anini out of Houston, who I think has a lot of juice off the edge. Like, he's not signed with a team either at this point. Maybe teams don't like him as much as I do. I think he's probably a pass rush only guy. So you're talking about a guy that comes in on third downs to just come in and rush the QB. I don't think he's a multiple down player, at least not at this point. But he is juice off the edge as a pass rusher. Wasn't on the Draft Network's radar, but he's someone I actually like. There's another guy as well that I think fills that same role. Kind of a fun name. It's Wake's Luigi Villain. Goes to the Vikings. Again, probably a pass rush only guy, but was fairly productive at Wake, and I thought he was going to end up going somewhere on day 3, even as early as, like round 3. Ends up falling out of the draft. Not that I had a round 3 grade on him, but you never know with some of these guys. Like, Villain could have ended up being a higher pick than you'd expect. Ends up going undrafted. I think he has got some pretty good upside as a pass rush specialist. Christopher Allen out of Alabama. Injury has been a problem for him, but I think he can be a 3-4 outside linebacker and is probably, yes, a pass rush only guy. But then you get to somebody that I think can do a little bit more than that, and that's Jamario Moon out of Florida. The big problem with him is injury. You can see here, suffered a season-ending injury as a true freshman that earned him a medical red shirt, and he just kept getting injured. A super senior season due to a foot injury in late 2020. So this is someone that is lean at 6'6", 250. I know that seems crazy calling that lean, but he definitely has a lean frame where he could put on more weight and become a more traditional 4-3 defensive end. But probably medical red flags led to him being undrafted. But I actually think fairly highly of the player, and he has already signed. He's going to the Ravens. I think a pretty great fit for him. They also got Emeka Emezi, who I talked about earlier. I don't really view Anthony Brown that highly, though. But there are a lot of good edge rushers. Even Trey Williams. Trey Williams tested really, really badly, has not signed yet. Like Trey Williams, graded by Lance Zierlein, 5.6, chance to make the bottom of a roster or a practice squad. He tested really poorly. I think they pushed him down even more, but he's got long arms, is a big dude, has production. He also was booked for a DUI. Goes undrafted. That's a character red flag. Not surprising, but I think he could end up making a team. Oh, hold on. David Anini's just listed as a linebacker here. Well, I think he's more of an edge guy despite only being 6'2". Jack Sanborn, somebody I also want to talk about. He's got pretty good size, and he was someone at Wisconsin where he was just cleaning up, right? You had Leo Chanel, who's just this super aggressive, blitzing linebacker. Sanborn is the more controlled, just not maybe going to make a ton of splash plays, but he's just kind of always in a good position to make a play. And I like Jack Sanborn for that reason. He was a really good duo of that Wisconsin linebacking crew. I thought he was going to get drafted for sure, and I thought JoJo Domann was going to get drafted too. He's like a hybrid linebacker safety, a little bit light, 6'1", 228, but you got to keep in mind he's like a safety. So if you put this dude in the overhang, put him against tight ends, he moves like a safety. He's not quite big enough to be a linebacker. He's really just a sub-package player, right? But I think there's a role for that, especially in the modern NFL. He ends up going to the Colts, and I quite like him as a player. I think he is not ever going to be a starter at any position, more than likely, but I think he's an impact player on special teams, and I think he's a good sub-package player that gives you a little bit more size, but still kind of the same skills that a DB might have. Corner's a bit of a weird one because I have these guys listed for different reasons. Mario Goodrich is just a solid player, in my opinion. I don't really know why he went undrafted, but he seems to be fairly good. It seems like the Eagles think really highly of him. $217K guaranteed to join the Eagles. Yeah, I think this is a good player. I'm not really sure why a team didn't decide to take a chance on him. I thought he tested fairly well from my recollection, 4.52. I think he's someone that deserved to be drafted. I think he is a little bit higher than the 5.68. I think he's someone that could end up being a rotational DB, and I think the value is absolutely there on day 3 of the draft. Teams disagreed. Mikael Wright is a return man. He's undersized, but I think he is a return man. I think he can play some nickel corner. He can rotate for you, maybe in dime, quarter packages, but I like his value as a return man, and teams draft returners nowadays. Did not decide to draft him. Now, he didn't run particularly well. I thought it was going to be a little bit better than that. This is someone who housed 2 kickoffs in 2019. I guess wasn't quite as productive the past couple seasons at Oregon in about 2 attempts a game, or about like 1 to 2 attempts a game. And then Josh Jobe. I am very surprised that Josh Jobe was not drafted, especially coming from the pedigree of Alabama. I think he's got to be signed at this point, and he's not. Alabama has fewest picks since 2016. After 2 starters not picked, that's Allen and that's Josh Jobe, even though Allen was kind of more a rotational guy. And he is signing with the Eagles as well, so this, I guess, is not as up-to-date as you might like. But Josh Jobe is not quite as good as Jalen Armour-Davis, but is someone that I really thought was going to end up on a team. I thought he was overrated for a while, a year or two ago, but now I think this is being a little bit underrated. I think he's like a back end of a roster type guy, but ends up, again, not getting selected. And then we'll finish things out with safeties before mentioning Cameron Dicker, the kicker out of Texas. I thought he was going to get drafted. I think he could end up being a starting kicker in the NFL. And there is good value at safety. So I have some Oklahoma State guys, Colby Harvell-Peel, Trey Sterling. I wanted to mention them. I don't know that they end up making teams. And then Leon O'Neal Jr. out of Texas A&M has had some big games in the past. He's someone who's a pretty good athlete as well, pretty good size for the position. I think it'd end up being a strong safety on a team. Again, with these UDFAs, it's tough to project any of them ever becoming a starter, but a good depth piece as well. Special teams, that type of thing. Verone McKinley, I thought would be drafted. Maybe lucked into some interceptions a little bit, but he is a bit of a ball hawk. Had 6 interceptions this past season at Oregon, had 4 in 2019. Not the best safety prospect in the world, a little bit undersized, doesn't have elite closing speed or anything like that. But the ball production is there. Like, yes, you can make the argument that, interceptions are kind of a situational thing where sometimes as a safety, you're going to luck into them bad throws, but he's been in the right position a lot. I don't think it's quite like Gerard Holloman, who had like 14 picks for Louisville in the 2014 draft class, but surprised to see his name go undrafted. Bubba Bolden is just not really good safety, but has prototypical size, I would say, of a free safety, has pretty good athleticism, and I think can make a team as a special teams impact player. Zerline views him as an end of the roster or practice squad player, and I think that's fair, but when you factor in the size and athleticism, I think there is something there with Bubba Bolden, at least as a special teams contributor. And we have Smoke Monday. He's going to fill a role, again, kind of the same deal with Bubba Bolden. Not quite the athlete that Bubba Bolden is, in my opinion, but is a pretty good athlete nonetheless. Great size. Again, special teams player. Maybe a fourth linebacker if you want to bring in somebody that can cover a little bit better. Smoke Monday, big safety. And then Marquise Bell has already signed, is already a member of the Dallas Cowboys at this time. HBCU guy, I like Marquise Bell. I liked him through the process. It was tough to get my hands on a lot of footage, so I've seen minimal games, but I liked what I saw when I watched him. And he has good size and ball production, which to me kind of says that can be a player that makes a team. I mean, you talk about 6'2", 212, running a 4.41, jumping out of the room. I mean, yeah, small school guy, but I'm extremely surprised he didn't get drafted. I really, really am. So it's no shock that the Cowboys have gone ahead and signed him already. This is someone who I think can definitely end up making a team. And yeah, again, just surprised he did not get drafted. And you can see a few more teams getting some players in here, but I do not know everybody. Like, I've never heard of Taysir Mack. I can tell you that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know who is the biggest shock to you of players that went undrafted. And I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Back to the house, defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud.